Well, folks, it happened again. A shot was taken, and a shot was missed. In fact, multiple shots were fired by an interesting man, someone with blue hair, someone with a Biden-Harris bumper sticker. That's right, folks. Shots fired at Donald Trump. And everyone has heard about this already, so I will skip to the important parts. I'm glad that I did not talk about this yesterday because, you wait 24 hours, you learn a lot. And boy, do we know a lot about this guy now. I can't even remember his last name now, or his first name, his name at all. But you know what? I don't need to give him notoriety. I'm sure he wanted to be remembered as John Wilkes Booth. But he didn't get his wish. You see, this was a man with a death wish. This was a man who wanted to be martyred. In the words of his own son, in taking down Donald Trump, the great Satan, Donald Trump, the puppet of Putin, Donald Trump, the greatest threat to our democracy in American history. This, from everything that we know about the shooter, this was how he saw Donald Trump. I don't even know exactly where to begin. There is so much to unpack about this story. I guess I'll start with what I think is the most concerning part. This man appears to have been an agent of Ukraine. This was a Ukrainian foreign agent living in the United States. He was an American citizen, but he was 100% loyal to the regime in Kiev. He made this abundantly clear across social media platforms, both Facebook and Twitter. Both of his accounts have now been scrubbed, unfortunately. I do not like that Twitter scrubbed his account, but luckily everything was recorded from his Twitter, at least. I don't know if they were able to get everything off of his Facebook, but there was some even more damning things on his Facebook page. But this was a man who was deeply involved with recruiting foreign fighters to go and fight in Ukraine against Russia. This was a man who visited Ukraine many times, who, according to a letter from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense that he posted to his Facebook page, it was written in Ukrainian, machine translated by Raheem Kassam, appeared to show that this man was accepted into the Ukrainian military and he was given orders where to report, blah, 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 back in March. And now, a few months later, the same year that he posts this letter from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, this man was staked out on Donald Trump's own golf course, hiding in the bushes, waiting for Trump to drive by in his golf cart so he could take a shot. A shot at ending Trump's presidential campaign, at ending his potential future administration, a shot at ending Donald Trump's life. But it appears that he was foiled. I think that the Secret Service engaged him before Trump was as close as he was hoping. He was reportedly 500 yards away, and though initial reports from the Secret Service said that he was armed with an AK-47 style weapon, that was quite false. He was armed. From the pictures that I've seen, it seems pretty clear he had an SKS. Now, it was an SKS with a detachable magazine, and it looked like maybe a black stock, but it was also very dark, so I couldn't really tell. Some people were saying, oh, it was a tactical TAPCO stock. It's like, well, I couldn't quite tell that. It looked to me like it was, like there was not a, there wasn't a pistol grip or anything. Either way, doesn't really matter what kind of stock it had on it. It was an SKS. And an SKS does not really have an effective range of 500 yards. SKS can reach out and touch you a bit further than an AK. It's got 4 extra inches on the barrel. I think an SKS is a 20-inch barrel. AKs are about 16. SKS, in my opinion, has a better trigger than the average AK. has a longer sight radius because of the longer barrel. But this guy was using a scope, so he had that advantage. But still, 7.62 by 3.9, not really a fantastic round at 500 yards. I mean, at that range, you'd be better off with like 5.45, or even maybe 2.23. But I mean, 7.62 by 3.9. From what I understand, you get up past 300 yards, it really drops. I don't have access to a range of those distances, so I'm kind of talking out of my ass. But just like general gun knowledge, it's like when I think of 7.62 by 3.9, you get out past 300 yards. It's like even you could be a fantastic shooter, but you got a shot out SKS barrel, that's like 60 years old. Now maybe who knows, this could have been this guy could have had a gently used SKS. There were certainly a lot of those back in the day, both Norinco SKSs that were made for commercial sale and Yugo SKSs that were just unfired and also didn't have chrome line barrels. They were a little more accurate. So maybe it's not like a ratty old Chinese SKS brought over from Albania or something that's been through 7 different wars. I'm not saying it's impossible to land a 500-yard shot with a milsurp, but it's not ideal, and I don't think that was the guy's plan. I think he probably wanted to wait for Trump to be inside of 200 yards. This guy was, from what I understand, experienced with weaponry. He was previously convicted of possessing a machine gun. I guess he had some sort of mental break in, I think, Greensboro maybe, where he barricaded himself inside of a house or a store and was armed with a machine gun. So this guy's got quite a history that reads a bit like an MK Ultra subject. And let's just say he has he glows a lot harder than even the last kid who tried to kill Trump. And I think that's saying something. This guy was doing the CIA's bidding in Ukraine. I'm not saying he was working for the CIA, but he was doing things that directly benefit the CIA. He was working behind the scenes to try to smuggle in Afghans into Ukraine who were fighting in Afghanistan, fighting the Taliban, get those guys out of Afghanistan, now that Afghanistan has fallen, and get them into Ukraine. I mean, is this not exactly like, this is like the conspiracy theories that those of us were coming up with when the Biden administration pulled out of Afghanistan and immediately started a war in Ukraine. We said, oh, well, they had to start the war in Ukraine to replace the war in Afghanistan that they just ended, for all the defense contractors. And it's like, not only that, but they had to find new work for all of these Afghan fighters. This guy was in charge of trying to bring them over from Afghanistan, smuggle them through multiple countries over land. Not put them on an airplane and get them to Ukraine. No, he was going to smuggle them across the border. He was hiring coyotes. He was buying fake passports. He was telling this to the New York Times. Did I mention that this guy was interviewed by the New York Times? He was interviewed by Newsweek. He was interviewed by multiple independent journalists. This guy got around. He was deeply involved in the war in Ukraine. Sure, was he some high-level commander? No. But he was one of these passionate Americans, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s son, who said, you know what? What Russia did is wrong, and I'm going to go sign up and help Ukraine. I'm going to do everything I can. This guy said on Twitter he was willing to die for Ukraine. He tweeted at Zelensky directly and said, put me on the front lines. Put me on the border with Poland. Which is not really the front lines, so maybe I'm misremembering that a little bit. But anyway, he was saying, I want to fight and die for Ukraine. That was what he wanted to do. And so, based on that, I would say it's pretty clear that he thinks that this is how he does that. This is his service to Ukraine. Fighting and dying for Ukraine. Taking out Donald Trump. Think about it. What a more impactful sacrifice than stopping the man who promises to end the war in Ukraine. What more could he do for the Zelensky regime? for the CIA, for the regime in Washington. Trump, as we are told by regime apparatchiks day in and day out, he's an enemy of the state. He must be stopped. He must be defeated. He must be eliminated. I'm not being hyperbolic. These are their exact words. And so this man took all that to heart. He earnestly believes in the cause. And he didn't care about what happened to him afterwards. He didn't care about his own life. He wanted to do what he thought was right for America and for Ukraine, which he considers to be an American proxy. And it is an American proxy. Everything that you see, every picture of this guy that exists, he's either got red, white, and blue hair, he's got an American flag t-shirt, he's waving an American flag. I mean, there's an interview of him going to Ukraine, and he's holding a American flag on a flagpole. This guy was very patriotic. He was a working class Joe. He drove a beat up old pickup truck with a Biden-Harris sticker. He was just a regular Joe himself. But he couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't take this terrible Trump man threatening to pull the plug on the Ukraine project. And so he took action. Now, thankfully, Ron DeSantis took the hint, and he is launching an independent investigation of this incident, independent of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, their own investigation, because the guy who's head of the FBI field office in Miami is a big anti-Trump guy, does not like Trump. He was very flippant about this situation. When the press conference, when the reporters were asking, hey, why wasn't this area secured? Why wasn't why was it that a guy with a gun like this was able to get so close to Trump again? And he said, well, what are we supposed to do? Trump's not a sitting president. He doesn't get the same security as like Joe Biden would. So what are we supposed to do? We did what we did our job. And so I'm curious what the state of Florida investigation finds, because it seems to me like it's highly likely that this man was not working alone. I mean, it sounds like Groundhog Day. We said this before. But how did the guy know where Trump was going to be? How did he know that he was going to be golfing that day? It wasn't on his official schedule or anything. He just decided, I'm going to go golfing today. And there just happened to be an assassin waiting in the bushes. An assassin who was working intimately on the CIA's pet project in Ukraine. A country that is essentially one giant CIA safe house. One giant base of operations for them. He was working on smuggling Afghans, from the last American colony, smuggling the CIA-trained soldiers from that country, the commandos, the terrorists, smuggling them into Ukraine to continue the good fight on behalf of Langley. I mean, this guy lived a life out of a spy thriller. And it all culminated in this assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump. An attempt that almost succeeded. Things were going pretty well for him. If he hadn't I don't know if he engaged them first or if they engaged him, but I'm pretty sure from what I understand, they spotted him in the bushes. His position, his cover was blown, and he had to respond. He had to return fire. And because from what I've seen, they're saying the Secret Service shot at him first because they saw the gun. And so he had to return fire, and at that point, when there's gunshots going off, they're gonna rush Trump away. He's not going to be in harm's way anymore. But now that I think about it, I mean, what if there was more than one gunman in a situation like this? What if the plan was for one of them to cause a ruckus, to draw the attention of the Secret Service, and for these remaining agents to then take Trump and try and take him somewhere secure, where there actually would be another gunman waiting? What if this was the diversion? What if this was meant to push Trump into the arms of another killer? You see how many ways this could have succeeded? If this guy had just simply stayed hidden better, this could have succeeded. If this guy had instead acquired a different rifle, let's say, a 30-06 or something that's a little more realistic out to 500 yards. Let's just say this guy had a Remington 700, a normal hunting rifle, with an appropriate scope, and some decent, some decent ammo, not just like M2 ball. You want decent hunting ammo that is accurized, that is, has proper powder measures in it so that every shot is consistent. Definitely sub MOA ammo, preferably like half MOA, maybe max. Because you're trying to pick off a president. You're trying to assassinate him. You're trying to snipe him. And so if the guy had done that instead of bringing, his Bubba SKS out, with the 30-round banana clip, and yes, I am using that term ironically. If he had done that, if he had been a little better prepared, if he had one of those wooden steel hunting rifles that the Democrats tell us are perfectly fine, instead of an assault weapon, then he probably would have been successful. So these are just three scenarios I just thought of off the top of my head in which this would have been successful. Trump would have been dead, and Ukraine would have gotten its wish. Now, we don't know that this man was working under orders from Ukraine or orders from the CIA. We don't know that. What we do know is that he is aligned with both of those groups. He's aligned with their interests, and he wanted to take Trump out, it's almost certain, because he was a threat to those interests. So it becomes a question of, okay, if he was working as an agent of Ukraine or as an agent of the CIA, would he have done anything different? Maybe they wouldn't have ordered him to do it at this time. Maybe they would have organized things better. And that only applies to the CIA. I could absolutely see Ukraine pulling off an assassination job that is this sloppy, with a scoped SKS at 500 yards. So it's hard to believe that we live in these times when regime forces are just openly out trying to pick off the opposition party candidate in broad daylight, and the media they move on immediately. I happened to tune to Lester Holt last night because for all reasons, my grandmother watches Lester Holt on the NBC Evening News every night, so I was over there helping her with something and turned it on, and it was the famous clip now, the infamous clip that's gone viral of Lester Holt. When do you ever say that? There's never a viral clip of Lester Holt. He's pretty boring, but he's reading off the teleprompter. It says yes, and after the coming in the same week after this apparent assassination, Trump and Vance have extreme rhetoric about Haitians. It's like, what? You're making this story about Trump's rhetoric? Somebody just tried to kill him, and you're saying that he has extreme rhetoric? Apparently his rhetoric's not extreme enough. Because all the rhetoric in the world doesn't amount to the extremiosity of one bullet. I guess the correct term would have been the extremism of one bullet. And thankfully, unlike the last assassination attempt, since there weren't too many people around, there was no collateral damage as far as people are concerned. I don't believe anyone was hit by any shots, not even the shooter himself. He was taken alive. He was taken in by the Martin County Sheriff, who turned him over to the FBI, and now who knows where he's going to be. He's probably going to slip and fall in the shower, in prison, and never wake up, and that'll be the end of him. We'll never know the truth. He'll never be able to, whatever his story is, won't be able to get to tell it. He won't be able to rat on anyone who helped him. He won't be able to tell us where he got his information from. He won't be able to tell us exactly why, although his son made it pretty darn clear. He said, I'm estranged from my father, but my father, hates Donald Trump just like any decent human being would. And, if he wants to murder himself for the cause, well, that's his business. So the guy's family's not even disavowing him, just so you know. That's the world we live in. That's how the other side feels about you. Anyway, I could go on about this for forever, but that's pretty much what we know now, the important stuff. I mean, that's what I'm focused on. I want to know more about the Ukraine connection. I want to know more about the intelligence connection, because this guy, it's not that we have any direct ties between him and intelligence agencies yet, but he's sniffing all around this stuff. He wanted to start a Taiwan Foreign Legion. Like, he cares about all their causes. He's very, there's no way that this guy did not run across the intelligence. Oh, and I completely forgot. He was in an Azov battalion propaganda video. So, I mean, the guy is in with the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They tell us Trump's a Nazi. They tell us Trump supporters are Nazis. Then a guy who's working with the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And so, by media standards, it's guilt by association. He, too, is a neo-Nazi. A neo-Nazi just tried to kill Trump. No one will reflect on that. They won't even skip a beat, because they never cared. It was never an honest criticism. They never believed Trump was a Nazi. They never believed you were a Nazi. They don't even care about the Nazis. That was 80 years ago. Nobody cares about the Nazis anymore, except for maybe the Azov battalion. They care a lot about the Nazis. Don't take their flag away, okay? So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.